I'm your host, Gregory Frye, Executive Editor at the Bluntness, and today I have two wonderful guests, Afshin Mousavian and Karina Karassev. Afshin is currently CEO of Responsible Cannabis Use, or RCU, a cannabis education company that brings awareness to cannabis facts, laws, regulations, and research, while also developing products to help normalize cannabis. He works alongside Karina, who is co-founder and COO of RCU. Current projects include Can I Know, a website and educational platform that collects regional cannabis laws in one place. Can Ed, an online cannabis course that educates employers and employees on how to manage the risks of cannabis use in the workplace. And Stori, that's Stori, a cannabis storage product that provides consumers and patients with stylish, safe, food-grade, and airtight containers. Stori also comes with a digital app to track inventory, product reviews, and product recommendations, all for an elevated experience. You can find links to all of these projects through the Responsible Cannabis Use website at thercu.org. And all these projects are very relevant for our episode today, all about how employers should talk to employees about cannabis and how parents should talk to their kids about cannabis. Afshin and Karina, welcome. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Doing well. Thanks for having us in this episode.
Thank you so much for joining us here at The Edge. What are your guys' thoughts on, or what is that dialogue to be had about the idea of medicating during working hours, experiencing altered states during working hours? I think obviously depends on the kind of work you're doing, but let's just say office jobs, for example, where you're not operating heavy machinery or driving any, which is operating heavy machinery still. What are your guys' thoughts on that notion of getting high at work with medical purposes or for whatever?
It's a multi-layered answer. So the first layer of it is you don't, to Afshin's point, it's not a thing about getting high. Sure, it will alter, but you could also be taking CBD that's not going to alter or be psychoactive. So that's a first thing. I think second thing is the type of job that you have. So office work versus driving machinery is completely two different things. And employers can't say no to the accommodation that employers need because it's too costly, two, it just causes more danger to the public or the employee or the other employees. So they can't say no. And unfortunately, that is not possible in some occupations for obvious reasons. But I can also have the argument the other way. So I always say that when we started focusing only on safety sensitive jobs, that this needs to be educated and everybody needs to know what can happen. I think the other argument is financial institutions. So a teller who doesn't understand that, okay, I took an edible and then right before my shift, or my shift started in the evening, I took it's earlier in the day, I don't know, a teller adding a couple more zeros to my bank account would be great, but somebody taking away zeros to your bank account and doing financial transactions, it could cause an issue. So I don't think it's only that conversation is only needed in safety sensitive industries. It's needed in all industries to really educate people how it works versus all the myths that have been out there for years.
And that really connects to a topic that is often not discussed, and that's the topic of impairment. So when we say impairment, we have to really define what it means, not only by the definition of the term, but also in the legal sort of sense of it. So impairment is not being high only, not being drunk only, not necessarily being on the painkillers or whatever else. It could also be that, unfortunately, your dog got hit by a car and you're sober, but you're extremely distracted at work because you're so concerned. Your child is not doing well, or there's an ailment in the family that you just got aware of. You get some bad news about a mortgage. You're distracted. Impairment is that in its entirety. So it could be any of those things. So, a bus driver who's got this bad news about a mortgage driving down the street, not paying attention and causing an accident will still be under the impairment definition, as long as, as far as things are concerned. To your original question of where do employers draw this line, it is somewhat gray, and it is really up to the employers how they want to define this, especially in a world where sales culture allows for people to go to lunches and have a couple of glasses of wine, or at technology companies where there are beer fridges, and you're more than welcome to go and grab a beer at the end of the day on a Thursday, or maybe on a Friday afternoon. But then no, you cannot take edibles at work. And I think that's where the inclusivity really needs to come in. But what if you don't consume alcohol for personal reasons, health reasons, and so on and so forth, and while everybody else is consuming a beer, you wanted to go smoke a joint and come back upstairs? And this is where the employers need to really take a look at how the policy is put together and what's the intent behind the policy. Because if the intent behind the policy is that, look, alcoholic drinks or other sort of, let's say, for instance, a joint or an edible product are for recreational use, and during our company events, we definitely allow for that because we want people to be more of a comfortable and a casual environment rather than a professional environment. So during our company events, we will provide for both, and you can participate. Please use responsibly. We recommend that you don't mix, for instance, because you don't want to have the increased risk. That's one way to go about it. Another way to go about it is that you have a creative agency and they're like, we see that, our employers, our employees, some of them come to work and they smoke before, or, during the breaks, they go and smoke, but their performance is not hindered. And if that is your perspective, and then you could create a policy like that. But legally, one other thing you should consider is that if there is an accident at the workplace, so let's say you even work at a tech company, there's no safety sensitive jobs. You're walking down the stairs and you've had a couple of edibles, so your depth perception has gone a little bit, and you fall down the stairs and you break your arm. And at that point, then, if they take a look at the company's policy and see that you said that people can't consume edibles during work hours, and then you did not protect, had enough protection or warnings around the stairs, then that gets complicated in all sorts of different ways. And that's the whole point. The point of this is cannabis wasn't legalized for people to say, thank you, it's legal, I could do whatever I want. That's not what legalization really means. Legalization means that the product is now legal and it's not a criminal offense to purchase the product or grow the product, depending where you are, or consume the product. But you still have to do it within the confines of certain laws and certain restrictions to ensure your own safety, safety of the others, safety of the public and environment. So that's where the confusion happens. And we hope that when we do these conversations, on one side, you get people that say, I would never want to talk about cannabis at work because that opens a can of worms. And the other side, you get people that say, don't tell them about the cannabis at work because we all consume and we don't want them to know. And well, the foundation for both of those comments is that both people acknowledge there's something wrong. And they just don't want to deal with it because they feel like ignorance is bliss. And that's what the course tries to do in a more effective way, protecting the individual's rights, the employer's rights, and giving room for a flexible room for definition for each organization, considering all the factors that are ultimately important: safety, responsibility, and ensuring that everyone's sort of in an inclusive environment.
I think we should transfer this also to the home. Ideally, somebody who uses medical cannabis is able to have these conversations at work, but also how to navigate this conversation at home when people have kids little ones or teenagers. I bring this up because I know you guys just did a survey on this through the month of May. We surveyed quite a few mothers on their thoughts around cannabis dialogues in the home. And I wonder if you have any highlights from just the survey and takeaways that you found from that.
Yeah, so we had a lot of people participate in it. We had over 1,300 moms complete the survey. The results were actually really interesting. So overall, the highlight is moms are comfortable talking to their kids about cannabis in their home. So 87% of them said it's important to talk to their kids about cannabis. 59% said they talk to their kids about cannabis, about their own consumption, and their kids know that they consume because they've told them. And another 30% are actually looking for more educational content because they want to have the conversation and they don't know where to start. So I think overall, that's a very positive sentiment that's happening in the home. But when we looked at the other questions that we asked, it was the polar opposite. So 57% of moms said they're still hiding their cannabis at home. So they want to have the conversation with their kids, but they're still hiding it. So why is that? So when we ask them, so what concerns you the most about your kids knowing cannabis, that you consume cannabis, it wasn't about that the kids are going to think that they're less parents. It was more about the social pressures that they're going to go tell their teacher, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles that they consume cannabis. And that's where they feel that judgments will come and they will be stigmatized. So overall, parents are pro talking to their kids about cannabis and in their own environments. But it's when the kids go outside of the environment and tell their play dates that, hey, my mom does consume cannabis, and that the other mom over here doesn't support cannabis. That kid may no longer be allowed at that house, and those play dates will be discontinued. So that's kind of what we found in our survey, which was really interesting for us to see.
Yeah, and those are some of the insights that came out from it. And there's definitely a lot more room for understanding what these core issues are. But there's definitely palpable stigma about cannabis, and that's what really comes out of it. And again, ultimately, our goal here is to help normalize cannabis, or in a very responsible way. It's we live in the same world that parents could be holding on to a can of beer or a glass of wine while they're babysitting or looking after the neighbor's kids. But if they were smoking a joint, it's completely sort of frowned upon, and it's now you're on drugs and so on and so forth. And again, knowing the facts, understanding how the impairment on cannabis can work, and how long does it last, what happens, how does tolerance play a role in all of this, and so on and so forth, can help people understand what they're actually concerned about a little bit more. We've all been kids, and we know that we get extremely determined about something. We'll find a way to crack into it. But when you have it placed in a safe environment and you had the conversation about it, then you're going to be sort of dealing with more questions rather than things happening behind your back. So that's why we say that it's not right for parents to feel ashamed about consuming cannabis. They should actually talk about it. It's not right for parents to hide cannabis from the kids. They should tell them what it is, and it should be stored in the same way that they store their alcohol in their wine carts. And from there, that's the first foundation that can ensure that the family is going to take a more responsible approach towards cannabis at home. And issues will happen. It's not saying this is 100% bulletproof approach, but it is better than hiding it and creating further stigma around a product that is less dangerous than alcohol.
And the more we prepare ourselves for these types of conversations about cannabis with our kids or in the workplace, the easier it is to be open about it, and even celebrating our relationship with this plant, especially in a legal market where, like you said, it could be something you're not afraid to share with people, and which is one of the things that I love about Stori, is it embodies that spirit of the 21st century cannabis consumer or enthusiast. And I see it sitting there. You got to show it off a little bit while we're just, come on. It's a beautiful thing. Don't be shy.
So this is Stori. It's basically the wine card for your cannabis. And we really spent a lot of time building this out. We want it to be functional for home and on the go, and really trying to build it with the purpose of cannabis use in mind, not repurposing a pencil case or a lockbox. So Stori basically is assembled with a full case that is child resistant. It opens up with 2 sliding locks. The top tray is actually used as a rolling tray as well. And when you open it up, you have 12 containers in there. These containers are made from food grade aluminum. And there's a reason that we chose food grade aluminum, because we did a lot of research on a variety of different products that would maintain the quality of both your edible products and flower. So mason jars are great, but there are some major issues with mason jars. We want to get into that.
Yeah, the biggest way that terpenes actually get degraded is through sunlight. So I like that people started storing in mason jars. It's better than a Ziploc, but unfortunately that doesn't protect the terpenes and it actually evaporates it. So
and cannabinoids. Cannabinoids don't like sunlight either.
Right.
Exactly. So that's why we chose aluminum, not only because it doesn't actually put any taste into the product, but it's opaque and it doesn't let the UV light in.
And other things about it is that aluminum is very much recyclable. You get a lot of products in the market that are mixed with recycled plastic or recycled hemp. And there's issues with that because actually that makes those products non-recyclable. There's a huge conspiracy around what's recyclable and what's not. And the whole market that pushes organic and recyclable goods is actually a big fallacy. So there's a high percentage,
only 9% of plastic gets reduced, gets recycled. So that's why there is plastic in our product. That's why but we try to stay away from it as much as we can. That's why we chose aluminum. But 75% of the aluminum that's still in every product that we use is from, I don't know, it's been around for over 100 years. So it's 99% of it is recycled.
Wow.
So we want to do our small parts and choose the material that's not only good for cannabis, but it's not adding to environmental problems.
Right. And the purpose of this is that it's going to be long lasting. So even though it is recyclable, it's meant to be part of your lifestyle. Like you don't go and change your bar card every year or every other year. It's something that ages with you. It's something that gains more character as you use it. So for instance, each one of these pods can hold up to 7 grams of dry cannabis or edible products. You can be assured that when you put your edibles in there, you're not getting any additional smell or taste, or they're not going to be stuck to the container like they would to plastic. If they're in glass and sunlight hits them, they get super sticky to the bottom of that glass. Doesn't happen here because it blocks sunlight as well. The lids are airtight, which also is really important for flower. What you don't want to do is have too much airflow in there because too much humidity in can cause mold. And one of the other things that we did is we know that people who start to really care about their cannabis start to use humidity packs, especially Boveda has this patented 2-way humidity packs that they produce. So we created a little tiny jacket that fits inside the pod lid, and that holds the Boveda pack in place so that you can easily make sure that your Boveda is in place and it's keeping the flower inside in its good condition. And basically you just put this thing on top and you tie it up, and each one of these things is also child resistant. So again, when we talk about child resistant, it's meant for children that are under, I would say, 5 years old, because obviously we all know older children can even open up adult bottles and so on and so forth, and for pets, because you also don't want to have your products be accidentally consumed by your pets. In addition to the pods, there are the tubes that are also color coded. One of the other things we thought about was the smell of cannabis at home. It's a very much desirable smell for people that are consuming it and are liking it, but at the same time, you want to avoid having the excess smell linger around after you've done your session. So a lot of folks, what happens is that they consume a joint and they don't finish it 100%, or there's a lot of half joints left in their ashtray. And, that's what we call mystery weed, because you could have had, a terpene profile that is more energetic, and you smoke half of that, and then you have a terpene profile that's a little bit more sedative. And now you have two half joints inside of your ashtray and you have no idea what's what, and they're also stinking up your room. So if you color coded it and said, okay, well, this could be my limonene, and I'm going to put the limonene joint in here afterwards. And this could be my, for instance, myrcene. I could put my myrcene joint in here afterwards. Now, not only are you keeping track of what is what, but you're also doing it in a way that keeps your place clean and still matches the rest of your lifestyle. And you don't have to have these random ashtrays all over the place like it's the 70s.